Nigeria's aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, recently announced that the country will reopen its airports for international flights from August 29 and introduce protocols to minimize the risk of coronavirus infections. This announcement came just as Nigeria, which is home to about 200 million people, inched up to 52,000 confirmed coronavirus cases and was reporting almost 1,000 deaths at the weekend. Given that the resumption of international flights will begin in the mega city of Lagos and Nigeria's capital, Abuja, it will be remiss not to consider the rising coronavirus figures in both cities and the strong possibility of imported cases through the airports. Joining us today to discuss Nigeria's preparedness for the resumption of international travel in the midst of the pandemic is Captain FOLA AKINKUOTU, Managing Director of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, NAMA. Captain AKINKUOTU, thank you for joining us on Thisday Live and welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Good afternoon, Ruben. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, let me ask you quickly, is NAMA ready? Safety is the first consideration in aviation, we're told. So is NAMA ready in terms of its navigational and communication facilities for international flights, now that we understand that flights will resume on August 29? And in any case, these international flights that will resume, is that date, is it certain, or we may find ourselves in a situation whereby the date may be changed again?
Well, thank you very much. I'll answer and I'll speak for NAMA. As a very short answer to your question, we are ready. Yes, we are ready. The other aspect you discussed is you asked if we'll start on the 29th. What has been said and what I have heard, and in all the meetings that we've had, the Zoom meetings, is that international flights will commence from August the 29th. I don't recall where it was said that the date 29 was sacrosanct for starting. It says from the 29th. So I do believe that that is the way to properly put it and address it. Going back to your question, is NAMA ready? I've said that NAMA is ready. You have to look at it from this context. NAMA has been continuously been available, providing service even during the lockdown. We never shut down, we never stopped working. And when we started domestic operations, we went through a series of protocols and we were issued a thumbs up by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, which is the regulator, which set out before we started protocols that everybody had to pass before they got the certificate to be able to start. And if we in NAMA find ourselves or say that we are ready for domestic service, our domestic service cannot be, whatever we give to domestic airlines cannot be inferior to international airlines. Aviation is not categorized as domestic or international in the sense of safety. Safety for both the domestic and both the international must be guaranteed and must be worked at all levels. So we have passed the thumbs up, we have passed the checks for domestic operations, and obviously we have not slipped, nor have we deteriorated since then. In short form, we are ready for international operations. You look at the three critical points that NAMA's mandate is to provide communications, navigations, and surveillance. Our communication system is being upgraded continuously, and we have other things to augment communications. We have the CPDLC, which is a controller data link with pilots. We have upgraded all our communications, and we are working on it. to ensure that communications does not become a problem at any point, both for domestic and for international. Matter of fact, for all our customers. Navigation, we have continuously worked on making sure that our navigation systems are okay, where there had been a need to replace some equipment, we have done so. Last year, we did put in the Category 3 ILS in Lagos and Abuja, which are functioning perfectly. And where we needed to replace others, we are putting in new ones to replace older ones. In short form, our navigation system is up to par. And our surveillance systems will continue to work with Thales, the manufacturer of the surveillance system, which we'll call TRACON, Total Radar Coverage of Nigeria. We'll continue to get support from them. When things break down, we get the spares. So, in short, we are ready as we were before the lockdown, and we continue to improve on our ability to provide excellent service for both our domestic and our international carriers. Like I said in the beginning, what we serve our domestic will not be inferior to what we give to the international airlines. So the domestic airlines should be quite comfortable that we are not going to upgrade just because of international. We stay on safety at par all the time. Thank you.
Well, it's very good to hear that. But again, talking about domestic issues. Now, in the first week of August, there was this story that made the rounds that NAMA was broke and that NAMA had to look for loans to be able to pay July's salary. And the story said, look, NAMA relies heavily on international service charges paid through IATA, and that domestic airlines do not necessarily pay the charges that should go to NAMA. Now, why is it that we don't have a framework in place? The agencies have not been able to put a framework in place to ensure that domestic airlines pay to NAMA. And now that international flights will resume, your main source of revenue as an agency, are you optimistic that, with the limited flights, NAMA will be able to go out of the woods and will not need to ask for bailout?
Well, we have asked for bailout. We will need bailout, and we are expecting bailout. Just like globally, the agencies and the aviation sector has been given bailout. I think we need to tweak the issue of international and domestic airlines. What the international airline does, the operations, is to augment what we make from domestic. I mean, it's not like without them we will not survive. It might be a bit difficult, but like I said, they augment, as they should be, our income. And you asked, why is it that the domestic, we can't put a system in place where the domestic funds are guaranteed? There is in place some form of system where collection is done at the point where tickets are purchased. If they go through the banking system, the money is separated into different portals, and the airlines will be able to take their own money, and the agencies will be able to take their own money. However, the airlines have to be on this portal. They have to be there such that ab initio, once you buy your ticket, the funds are separated immediately, rather than the airlines paying after collection. I do hope that all the airlines will go on this portal, and that will take care of that once and for all. But let me say for the record that some airlines are there. They are on the portal. That I know for certain. Given the fact that I had been in the NCA and I had also worked in the airline, so I know that for sure, for certain some of the airlines are on this portal. The limited international flights that will come initially may not sufficiently provide what we expect, but nonetheless, we will be able to, shall I say, be cautious with our expenditure and make sure that what we have does go around. Part of what is needed in any circumstances to be frugal with your funds. We'll never have enough. So what you have, you make good effort to make do with it, and you spend judiciously. True enough, we've had to go outside our immediate funding system to be able to pay salaries. That is true. We got help from government, from the ministry. The Honorable Minister was very kind and very supportive in ensuring that the workforce got paid. I mean, government must be commended that even as we speak, there are people who don't come to work or who are asked not to come to work, yet they are being paid. So the issue of our taking a loan from government was to ensure that our workers are paid whether or not they are at work. And we want to be able to provide for them and make sure that when they come back to work, they are able to perform optimally without thinking about money or their financial situations and their homes, so that they can concentrate on their jobs.
Well, I mean, let me go back to the question.
I do hope I've answered your question.
Oh, yes, certainly. Thank you for that. And then let me go back to the issue of safety. I know that the Minister of Aviation has outlined a number of measures, COVID-19 tests, social distancing, all the basic precautions. But what are the safety protocols in place for international passengers? And what's the level of synergy around that among the various agencies within the aviation sector in Nigeria?
The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority is the regulator, and they set the standards, they set the protocols as far as aviation safety is concerned. Let us look at the issue of COVID and how it impacts on aviation. COVID is not an aviation issue. COVID is a health issue. So the restrictions on our movements, on our flights, on what we are doing is likely a health issue. And I remember that even as of last Friday, there were meetings being held with the international carriers to ensure compliance. The NCAA had set out guidelines and protocols that are to be met by the airlines before they start and what they need to do. From what I saw and what I know, definitely there has been compliance, or there will be compliance by the international carriers before they can commence operations. The NCAA guarantees that the regulations are obeyed and followed, or there is compliance with the regulations to ensure that there is safety. There is no doubt in my mind that the protocols have been set out, they've been discussed, and they are being implemented. NCAA, not NAMA, is the regulator, and they are responsible for this. But from what I have seen and what I've heard, there is no doubt in my mind that no issue of safety is being compromised, and compliance will be necessary.
Well, Captain AKINKUOTU, the Minister of Aviation also said from August 29th, what we're going to see is some kind of pilot phase of the reopening of the international airports. So the first phase will be the airport in Lagos, Murtala Muhammad, and the Nnamdi Azikwe International Airport in Abuja. How soon do you think that the other international airports in the country, Port Harcourt, Calabar, Kano, how soon do you think they would probably be reopened? And if in the event that the minister goes ahead to reopen more international airports, is NAMA working ahead in terms of communication and navigational issues to ensure that it's not caught napping?
We will not be caught napping. Like I said in the beginning, we will provide services as present for our domestic carriers that meet international standards. So whether or not they are domestic carriers or international standards, we will continue to maintain those standards that meet set standards by ICAO. There are only 5 international airports in this country, officially. And Lagos and Abuja are starting up. And like we did with the domestic, the Honorable Minister had paced it in such a manner that we were able to phase in other airports once they have met, that is, the infrastructure has met the requirements of the NCAA, how passengers are received, what kind of port health facilities we have there. These are issues. Like I said in the beginning, COVID is not an aviation issue. It's a health problem. So the NCDC, Port Health, the Ministry of Health are the ones that provide guidelines in terms of how to ensure that COVID does not become another nightmare or get bigger than it is at present. For certain, NAMA will be ready. We are ready to be able to provide service, air traffic management services at all our airports as we stand. And when the other airports are added, we'll be good and ready. You can be certain.
Well, Captain, yes, I agree with you that COVID-19 is a health issue, not necessarily an aviation issue. But you will agree with me also that the aviation sector has been one of the hardest hit sectors. In other places, even with the resumption of flights, many of the airlines are operating at lower than 50% capacity pre-COVID-19. You've talked about bailout for NAMA, but I know that industry-wide, airline operators are also asking for bailout. Travel agencies are asking for bailout. What's your own assessment of the extent of the impact on the aviation sector generally? And whether indeed a bailout should be a general thing, particularly in Nigeria?
Well, in terms of bailout, it's been addressed by the Minister of Aviation, and I do believe the Honorable Minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, is more than adequately capable to address the issues of bailout or not, or how it is structured to the aviation industry. What he has said was that effort was being made to look at the impact of COVID on the aviation industry. There's no doubt that the aviation industry has been very, very, very badly hit by COVID. And we don't see a full recovery until 2023. So it's going to take us a little while to get back to optimum. Having said that, I do believe that bailout or some form of assistance is being arranged at the ministry level. It's being discussed, but that is left principally to the ministry to discuss and to solve. It's not at my level. But COVID is not, I agree, I mean, COVID and the impact on aviation has been so massive. And people tend to say, okay, how are we going to recover? The protocols that are being put in place is to ensure that passengers, our customers, feel safe and that there will be no increase or possibility of being afflicted or infected by COVID through aviation. there is that fear, there is no doubt. But available information has not demonstrated that aviation has been responsible for an increase in COVID. Matter of fact, I was reading yesterday from a news item outside, and based on documentaries, that being on board an airplane itself definitely does not increase your chance of catching COVID. Matter of fact, the likelihood is you might catch it somewhere else, not in the airplane. And the formalities that have been put in place, like spacing and reporting on time and having your hands washed, wearing a mask, taking your temperatures, ensuring that you provide for international flights, prove that you have had a COVID test and you are negative. These are things that we are doing to ensure that aviation does not in any way contribute to an increase in COVID cases. But like you said, we've been hit. We'll have to stay afloat. A lot of the airlines are not getting enough patronage, but it will come up. There's no doubt in my mind that it will come up. This is not the first time that numbers have gone down, although this has been on a global scale, but people will have to travel. We're not going to walk to London, and we're not going to go by train either. Neither are we going to go there on horses. So I am certain that there are a lot of people, including your good self possibly, who want to go to London. You are not going to walk there. We are waiting for you. You will come. Give it time.
Anyway, Captain, before we go, I just need you to help us clarify something. In the course of the week, I read a story indicating that Ethiopian Airlines was going to have 2 flights on Friday to London. And airfares were even attached to those flights. One in the morning on Friday, one in later in the day in the evening. Did this really occur? Did it happen? Is it the case that some airlines who are not even involved in evacuation have already started flying ahead of August 29th? And then there was another story indicating that an Angolan airline aircraft landed in Lagos and it was impounded, and that nobody knew that flight was coming into Nigeria. Is it possible for any aircraft to take off from Nigeria or land in Nigeria without NAMA knowing?
Well, let's take the issue of the Ethiopian first. You've asked me if I know about it. I can tell you right off the bat, I don't know anything about it. And I am certain that nobody is operating commercially before the 29th of, as a regular commercial flight before the 29th of August. Discussions are on, and I'm certain that the Ministry of Aviation will guarantee fairness, because we have said we are limiting the number of people that can come in at inception. We are limiting the number of airlines that will be able to operate. So, and there's more demand than for these slots. So there has to be some measure of fairness, and I'm sure the Ministry of Aviation will guarantee that there is fairness in the distribution of the flights, such that nobody is going to be caught with the short end of the stick. On the issue of the Angolan flight, let us look at. I don't want to make specific comments on it, but in a broad situation, if you are looking at it broadly, you ask, is it possible for anybody to land in Nigeria without NAMA knowing? I can tell you outright, no. There's no way that you are going to enter Nigerian airspace without us knowing. You have to communicate with us. However, the sanctity of life and safety is prime to aviation. So if an airplane happens to have an emergency or wants to operate in Nigeria and has some form of documentation, we assist them to land. Now, it's possible that these things might not be valid, but we have provided a situation where we have guaranteed, or we assist in the sanctity of life. However, when people break laws, they don't necessarily get away with it. So if you land in Nigeria, we have security agents that will be able to take it from there on. We have provided assistance in the sanctity of life. But if you breach security, that's a different kettle of fish. And once security has been breached, we leave it to security agencies to advise us.
Well, thank you very much, Captain FOLA AKINKUOTU, for joining us on Thisday Live today. Thank you very much. We all look forward to the resumption of international flights on August 29. Thank you. It's time now for a break here on Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. Joining me now in the studio are Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, and CHIKE OGEAH, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State. Well, we've been talking to Captain FOLA AKINKUOTU, the Managing Director of the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency in NAMA. And of course, safety is very important in the aviation sector. And we're lucky to have on Thisday Live, CHIKE OGEAH, who is a major player in the aviation sector. CHIKE, well, from your own perspective, is Nigeria ready for the resumption of international flights, NAMA and all the other agencies? And I'm sure you listened to Captain AKINKUOTU. He has tried to build confidence that NAMA is ready, the federal government is ready. But what is your take, particularly with regard to the principle of reciprocity? The details in that regard not yet fully provided by the Minister of Aviation. And then the pegging of the number of passengers to just a little above 1,280 for the 4 flights daily in Lagos and Abuja. Do you have any idea how the minister arrived at that magic number?
Your questions are always so loaded, so by the time we start answering, we might leave 1 or 2 things out. But let me start from the beginning. I think the most important thing is that, of course, COVID-19 was a global phenomenon. It affected all spheres of human life adversely, and of course, the aviation sector was very, very severely impacted, being that travel was maybe at the beginning the greatest way the virus was spreading across the globe. So definitely there had to be this shutdown of the airspace across the whole world. Of course, it was such an event that I don't think had happened in the world in the past, God knows how many years, for so many planes to be grounded in all the international airports and for the skies to just hold. Well, now we're beginning to get a hang of the virus. It's not as if the danger is totally out of the window, because from the statistics we get from the COVID update, we can still see that there's still a lot of infections going on, but maybe it is becoming something that we are understanding a little bit better. And then, of course, there's been this great controversy of life and livelihood. And yes, God has kept those of us that are still alive. Of course, we lost a lot of friends, a lot of loved ones to complications from COVID. But the truth is that life has to go on. And the world itself is resetting itself to start gradually. And I think that is what Nigeria is doing in all phases of human endeavor, but particularly with aviation now. So definitely we have a situation where we have to start, in like installments, so to speak. And I think that in the wisdom of the aviation authorities is what they are doing. Before passenger flights have been coming in, I'm sure cargo had already started. Even during the lockdown, that was how we could get PPEs in and all that. So cargo planes were going and coming, of course, observing all the aviation procedures. But the gentleman you spoke to now is in charge of surveillance, communication, and navigation. That is, no plane, no aircraft can get into Nigeria without clearance from them. And just like he said, if there's a distressed plane out there that wants to land, he will definitely come in. But after he gets in, then he will face the agencies that are in charge of security, and he will say why he has breached whatever, protocol he has breached by landing in Nigeria if he was not supposed to. So those are all the kind of things that are going on now, and aviation is slowly calibrating itself to come back. Yes, if you heard Dr. AKINKUOTU, he said that they are ready in Nama. In fact, even before the lockdown, they were already ramping up on their systems, and that's what they continue to do. We keep saying it, aviation is a global business. There's no Nigerian standard and Europe standard or American standard. It is one universal standard, and that's what the NCAA is there for. The NCAA is our local IATA, and we have all the ICAO procedures to follow, which we follow, strictly. And I think, from what I can see, both the infrastructure part of our air travel, which are the airports, all the issues of social distancing, hand washing, and testing. Temperature test and all that. Social distancing, the way you see it, are all in place. Of course, like the MD of NAMA said, money is an issue. They definitely need a bailout because this thing was crippling, and I know the minister is also handling that, So I am sure with that, that's how they can keep workers in there. Like he said, there are some workers that are there that don't even come to work, that will keep on, getting their salaries, and that's the only way we can keep it going. So definitely the idea of getting in a few flights into Lagos and Abuja is in tandem of what we're trying to do to start the sector slowly, because you have to be very, very careful. Like I said, the danger is not totally out the window. Who knows if after 1 week or 2 weeks of international flight, we'll see a spike in infections. It's possible. Because, you see, if they are on that aircraft, and no matter what we are doing on the ground, and there's no social distancing on the aircraft, then we are going to have a problem. So whether we like it or not, with these few flights that are coming in, I assume that there will be federal regulations of social distancing on the aircraft. Maybe people will have to start eating in batches. The way we understood international flights, everybody moving about, and just having a good time, I think all that is out the window now. You just have to be confined to your space. Maybe you have to use your mask for most of the flight. So obviously we're looking at situations where flying is not even going to be such a pleasurable experience anymore. And whether we like it or not, that will impact on the passengers. So people will only have to be traveling when they absolutely have to. And you see, these are all the things that will keep impacting on the bottom line of the sale of tickets. And once we're not selling enough tickets, then all these agencies are not going to be getting enough money, including the airlines themselves, including us as ground handlers, because the fewer airlines we handle, the less money we get as well. So it's just it's something that spirals around the whole of the industry. And the prayer is that as we start slowly, we will continue to get better. We'll continue to ramp up the numbers while making sure that safety is not compromised in terms of, this COVID situation. And once we realize that the numbers are still as they are, or they're even coming down, then I'm sure, just as they have been doing the whole PTF task force on COVID-19, you just take it. Whether we like it or not, we still even have a kind of a curfew in Nigeria up till now. So have you asked yourself, really, when this flight starts, what about flights that are supposed to come in at 1 a.m. or 12 midnight or 5 a.m. and all of that? You see, so these things, they have to keep just adjusting and adjusting as the situation goes along. Well, CHIKE, that is exactly what I think we are going to look at.
This is a subject you are very passionate about, but don't worry, calm down. As the situation normalizes, you will make more money.
Amen. That's the prayer. That's the prayer.
Well, let me come to you. There is a phrase that the Minister of Aviation was using, reciprocity, in terms of airlines that will be allowed to come into Nigeria. Not persons, but airlines. And the EU has particularly been mentioned because Nigeria is one of the 15 countries that the EU blacklisted when they admitted certain flights, certain airlines into Europe. Now, should we go beyond reciprocity and be looking at, in fact, areas of the world that are, very serious COVID-19 hotspots?
Let me commend Captain AKINKUOTU for being an academic diplomat in his explanations. It's very critical to the question of reciprocity. If you look at it, you did ask the first question. Are you ready, Nama? You raised the issue of August 29. Captain AKINKUOTU simply said, directly and indirectly, there's a fundamental difference between from August 29 and on August 29. As far as his knowledge will carry him, the way he put it, what was given to the general public is as from August 29, meaning now that it may be August 29, it may be thereafter. The diplomatist in him as well is that when you asked questions that are most likely to commit him, he tells us that, look, the minister, honorable minister, has more knowledge, more power, experience. So in this case...
He's protecting his...
No. Yes. You see from his background that I know, when you now say, are we ready? I think I will believe in him because of his person, his personality, his characteristic, his way of life is such that he tells the truth the way he knows it. So I am particularly glad that we've had him invited to speak to us on this particular issue. How is this one related to reciprocity? You see, reciprocity can mean retortion, and it can also mean reprisal. In the context of international aviation, it is retortion we should be talking about. Now, when we open our borders, we are open here. What about the other end, the destination? If at the other end, the borders are not open there, certainly we should reciprocate. The bottom line is that there are 22 airlines here in Nigeria operating, functional. Only 4 will be allowed. What happens to the other 18? CHIKE told us gradually they will be doing so. But I think that so far, since we are beginning, let us give it a trial. Reciprocity should be applied with common sense.
Well, YEMI, let me come to you. Do you think that we're resuming international flights a bit too early, considering the fact that even the churches and mosques that have been asked to reopen, I've seen persons who say, no, they won't go to church yet. They will still wait and observe. Do you see international passengers also exercising caution?
Indeed. I mean, I'm one of those, I'm in that category of waiting a little bit to go back to church. But I think international passenger, and I'll be also in that category as well, waiting until I get on the first flight. But I don't think it's too early, to be honest. Domestic flights are in operation. We haven't had any cases with domestic flights. But I think more important for me is what was seemingly becoming a racket with evacuation flights, where, I mean, the rates that we were having evacuation flights, one then began to wonder, and not even just evacuation flights as they were called, but also, private arrangements for people to pay really quite exorbitant prices to fly to London or fly to wherever planes were, or South Africa, or wherever it was. So for me, what this then allows is if commercial operations resume, it returns some semblance of a bit of fair pricing. I mean, ticket prices will still be higher, but at least it normalizes it a little bit so that one doesn't have to jump through hoops to get on a flight. And I think more importantly, what will be important then is sort of just the protocols and security so that due process is followed. Because if we had that with flights, when people landed, a friend's friend landed on an evacuation flight and she got the slips with data of 9 other people with her. So data privacy as well. So issues like that, I think, are more important for me.
Well, thank you. We've spent quite some time on resumption of international flights, and justifiably so. Let's take another topic. The leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, last week withdrew the invitation extended to the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, to present an address at the association's 60th Annual General Conference. The NBA took the decision after no fewer than 3,000 lawyers had signed a petition against the participation of El-Rufai at the conference. However, in his reaction to his disinvitation, El-Rufai called out the NBA for not giving him fair hearing, adding that his action not only negated the rule of law, but was also a contradiction of the NBA's motto, which holds itself out as a custodian, defender, and guardian angel of the rule of law in the country. Meanwhile, the outgoing president of the NBA, Paul Osoro, on Friday, noted in a letter to the Nigerian Governors Forum that El-Rufai's invitation to the conference was brought up at a meeting of the National Executive Committee of the NBA the day before, and a majority of its members had voted in favor of disinviting the governor. Well, you know the rest of the story. Yemi, I'll start with you. Do you think that the NBA has been fair to Nasir El-Rufai?
I believe so. And I believe, I mean, for the sake of...
they've been fair?
I think so. And obviously, you don't...
Based on allegations that have not been proven?
Can I land, instead of you sort of projecting your opinions, let me land. I think there have been. Because I think it's high time in this country that we begin to take platforms of important institutions or significant institutions like the NBA and hold them in the high esteem that they require. For the sake of sort of disclosure, I was invited to moderate the panel that Malam El-Rufai would have sat on, and I declined. Because not only was Malam El-Rufai on that panel, Governor Wike was also on that panel. And I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, and for the work that Enough is Enough Nigeria does on rule of law and calling out state governors in arresting citizens for writing posts they don't like or demolishing buildings or whatever it is that goes against court orders, it would be remiss of me to then sit on a panel and try to moderate a conversation. So 2 important points, I think, for me on that note. A lot of people who are saying that Malam wasn't given fair hearing or should have been allowed to come to the conference to hear a side of the story. And I have a slight problem with that. NBA conference is it's an annual conference. It's not a trial forum where it's come and say your side of the story. Whatever needs to be said, and Malam as a governor of a state that has access to radio and has access to TV, does not need a platform like the NBA to hear his side of the story or whatever story it is, number one. Number two, he was being invited to speak on a panel on who is a Nigerian. Has nothing to do with rule of law, has nothing to do with Southern Kaduna killings, the issues that were sort of part of the petition. 2000, in a letter that Mr. Femi Falana wrote, he reminded Nigerians, or the NBA more precisely, of that in 2006, the NBA as a body had downed tools for 2 days because Malam El-Rufai was part of, as Minister of the FCT, was part of government agencies that were not obeying court orders. Interestingly, former President Obasanjo was president at the time, and he's also invited to NBA. Some people have taken that up and now asking for former President Obasanjo and Governor Wike to be disinvited as well. So I say all that to say that I do not believe that the NBA is a platform for Malam El-Rufai to air either. It's not a trial forum, so it's not his side versus this side. I simply see the NBA conference as a platform for people who are recognized in society, especially because it has to do with the law. Inviting someone who has shown disregard for the law, I don't believe is fair. And I think it's extremely also important to note that the neck of the NBA is made up of members of every NBA branch across the country.
125 branches.
Thank you. Of 3 nationwide, and 3 members each from each branch. And in Mr. Osoro's...
former presidents and former secretaries.
Thank you. And in Mr. Osoro's letter to the Governors Forum, he did say only 3 people spoke in favor of Malam El-Rufai. I think that's
from the south.
And exactly, 2 of them were from the south, of the 3. And I think that's extremely significant. Today alone, we've seen the Jigawa State branch send a letter saying that the first letter in support of El-Rufai was someone's personal opinion, but that the branch as a whole supports NBA. So if we get lost in the issues, and I think I'll say this lastly, I'm sorry, it's quite important. Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria have now risen up and said Muslims should not attend the conference. And I think it's very unfortunate that they are politicizing this thing around religion. Because as someone challenged them on Twitter, when we're talking about state of emergency against gender-based violence, where were Muslim lawyers? When people in Kaduna and Northern were being killed by bandits, where were Muslim lawyers?
Well, it's but not on just Murik, Muslim Rights Council.
No, but I speak specifically about lawyers because of these issues of rule of law. So when there are issues around law-related issues, you're silent, but you now suddenly, as Muslim lawyers, now want to make this a religious issue, and it's really quite unfortunate.
Well, CHIKE, let me come to you quickly and briefly, if you can make it brief. CHIKE.
Yeah, what do you want to come to me about? This is my profession.
Do you agree? Do you agree with YEMI?
Well, my take is slightly different. I'm not very active in the bar. I haven't been in the last 25 or so years, 28 or so years. You know, I was active for just the very my early years in practice. But what I can say is that maybe we thank God that we are evolving and coming to this new leadership. You know, this is supposed to be the last hurrah of this last executive to organize this conference and then leave and hand over, as far as I'm concerned, to this generation shift we are about to achieve in the NBA. And I think one of the first things these new guys coming in should avert their mind about is that Nigerian politics is jaundiced, it is toxic. Maybe they should leave it alone. North, south, east, and west. Leave it alone. A conference like this, if you asked me, look for distinguished jurists that are going to retire serving, that are going to add value to the law. Those are the kind of people you should invite to. So we can just avoid this comedy of errors that is going on. You invited Nasiru. Why did you invite him? You are uninviting him. Why are you uninviting him? Then, you know, typical of Nigeria, we play the ethnic card, which is what is going on now. We play the religious card. These are all the things that divide us. So why use the NBA, which is supposed to be, like you said, a uniting force for the rule of law and all that, as something to further polarize us? We're already polarized enough. Muslims, Christians, Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, Yoruba, we are all dying. We are all insecure. We are all suffering in Nigeria right now. Our economy is tanking down. Those are the things we need to be looking at, not further excavating the issues we have with non-issues like who you invite and who you uninvite. So I think these are the more important things for me, that this new leadership should take a totally separate path from all this trying to get politicians and massage their egos and get them involved in all these things. Because what you get is what you are getting right now.
Well, I need Prof to also put in a word on this subject. Prof.
You see, most unfortunately, YEMI was very correct because he substantiated the case. We only add some footnotes, which he didn't add. One, the issue at stake hasn't anything to do with religion, with political governance. The NBA, particularly those who opposed having El-Rufai, they said that his activities of El-Rufai were incompatible with the motto, the focus, the values of the NBA. YEMI rightly recalled what Femi Falana told us, 2006. Out of 8 cases, court orders that were not respected, 3 were from El-Rufai when he was FCT. So they are now bringing his historical background to date. What he said last week too. So those who opposed him opposed on the basis of objectivity of purpose. But the reaction, Murik, now asking Muslims lawyers not to participate. The annual general conference of the NBA is on individualistic basis. It's not on branches. So if lawyers now come out to bring religious sentiments, ethnic sentiments there, I would suggest that they should continue with their conference without those people who do not want to participate.
What is clear?
Let it go.
What is clear is that right now the NBA is a divided house. And I guess Olumide Akpata, the president-elect, has his job cut out for him to restore confidence in the NBA and to unite the family of lawyers in Nigeria. You've been watching Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next Sunday.